IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. If you haven't figured out from that intro tune, this is our first episode during the IPL. DJ is joining me today. By the time we record this, it's a little bit too late, so Varun has gone to sleep after the second match of IPL 2020. DJ, how are you feeling, man? 2 games of the IPL done. It's finally here. It felt like we waited a lifetime for this, didn't we?
Dude, you played that sound and I know I was on mute and I just started pumping my fists and stuff. It's been a weekend, man. What a bumper way to start the IPL. We waited 6 months. I know for you it's over 100 days that you waited for live sport, but man, it feels like cricket is back. We're watching the big names again. I mean, what a weekend it's been, and let's talk about all that, man. It's going to be fantastic.
What a way to start, too. We had an amazing IPL kickoff weekend. Just really quickly for our listeners, I'm going to do a quick rundown. So for those of you who've been listening a couple of years now, thank you for your loyalty to Edges and Sledges, by the way. But what we normally do during the IPL and what we're doing this time is a little different. But for each of the next 8 weeks, which go through the duration of the IPL, we will spend the first half of the show with just us. You know, sometimes the two of us, sometimes Varun will join us as well, where we're doing a wrap of what's happened during the week, talking highlights, getting into it. And we'll do a fantasy league update as well about what's going on in the IPL. And for the second half of the show, we have a really cool segment where we have some fans join us. So if those of you remember, we put out a call. Some of our listeners or fans who are fans of specific teams put out a message. And anyway, we have them joining us. So this week's episode, the second half of it, stay tuned, is a preview or a deep dive into the Kings 11 Punjab. We have 3 awesome fans, Bharath, Rahul, and Inderveer, who join us for the second half of the show, where we'll talk about the Kings 11 Punjab. And unfortunately, sometimes when we record that, it's a little earlier than when you listen to it. So for this week's episode, we actually recorded before the Kings 11 Punjab weekend match was done. So what you'll hear in the second half of the show is going to be organic, talking about the past, talking about the future, but not specific to the match. There's my disclaimer. DJ, with that, let's talk about weekend 1 of the IPL. 2 amazing games. Chennai versus Mumbai to kick us off, a repeat of last year's final. And then Delhi versus Punjab, which by the way, a lot of people on Twitter made fun of, saying 2 minnows playing 2 of the lesser teams. Before we get into the game, let's talk about a couple things happening in the stadium. The first, there's no crowd. The Hotstar feed, at least the one I'm watching, I think it's true everywhere, has found a way to pump in fake crowd noise. So it's really loud when you're watching it on TV, but there's nobody sitting there. What is your reaction to that? How did you feel about it kind of game 1, by the end of game 1, and then into game 2? Did it change at all? Did it evolve?
So very interesting, because obviously the CPL's been played. England's been playing lots of cricket in England in their home season and stuff. So I think the broadcasters have actually learned from them a little bit. So the noise was there. So if you didn't realize there was no crowd, you wouldn't have even understood that. But I don't know, man. I think it was a little bit tricky for me, because when Bumrah was coming in for his final over, man, a Mumbai crowd would have been going insane. It would have been going berserk. The energy that they would have got from the crowd would have been insane. Same for the RCB chant or the Delhi Capitals chant or something. But I don't know. I mean, it also went wrong a little bit. Sometimes I felt it was a little bit odd because I think the guy who's playing the sound is actually sitting somewhere out or at home, and he presses a button or whatever, but it doesn't kind of correlate to what happened. So if there's a ball that has gone out into the outfield for one, they're cheering like it's some World Cup winning 6 that Dhoni's hit. It's what is happening? But maybe it'll get better. I thought the one thing they did really well was whenever there was a 6, they cut to slow motion shots of the 6 being hit, rather than where the CPL, remember, the players are climbing over the seats and going to retrieve the ball and stuff. So I thought they did that well, but the sound, I think, was probably too noisy and needs a little bit more syncing, but maybe they'll get better at that as the tournament goes along.
Yeah, I think you summarized it really well. 100% agree. I think my 2 reactions on the crowd noise: 1, it has to get better, right? You got to give them time. I'm always willing to, benefit of the doubt at this point early. They've never done this before. I don't know exactly to your point, DJ. Is it a guy pressing a button every time something happens, or is it some sort of AI or machine learning, which will get better over time? Hopefully, either way, it improves. and they fixed the levels and the volumes. For the first game, actually, it was very difficult to hear the commentators because the crowd noise was just so loud. But that's very fixable. And then the second thing that most leagues are doing now is I hope they offer a no crowd noise option. So Hotstar has the ability to go, at least in the app, which I use. I'm assuming it's true on TV as well, where you can watch different languages, right? Where you can watch different commentary in different languages. Theoretically, there should be a way to say, hey, watch commentary in your language, but with no crowd noise. And I'd just be curious what that looks like. I don't think they will do that. There's probably a little bit of risk of players saying stuff on the stump cam that gets picked up, etc. But I hope they do. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and there was a couple of times where they were playing like Ole Ole in the background and stuff, which was pretty cool. But are they playing it at the ground, do you know? Because it sounded from Rohit's post-match interview that they were playing it at the ground. So
yeah,
maybe that crowd noise is helping them.
I don't know. Did he say the crowd noise is playing? I believe they got the music and they have an announcer who's like announcing as though there was a crowd that the next batsman in is Rohit Sharma and that stuff. But I don't know if the crowd noise is piped through this.
Maybe that's the next step, right? For the players to feel like they're still playing with a crowd in the background. I don't know. Maybe that's it.
All right. And then the only other thing I want to ask you before we get into specifics of the first game is, as we saw the players come back out, there was kind of two trends we noticed in terms of what has happened to the players and their bodies and their fitness over the lockdown. The first, and I sent you guys this message on WhatsApp, is MS Dhoni, who looked huge. He looked so much more buff than I remember him being. His arms looked bigger. His chest looked bigger. He looked like he'd spent majority of his lockdown in the gym. And then the second, on the other extreme, which has been more of a talking point, is unfortunately people like Rohit Sharma, Saurabh Tiwari, Piyush Chawla, who looked like they had let go of their fitness a little bit. So DJ, let me ask you, reaction. Sometimes as sports fans, we're really harsh saying, hey, this is what they do for a living. Can't they stay fit, etc. What is your reaction? Do you think, playing at the highest level, making as much money as these guys do, they should have invested more in fitness over the lockdown?
Yeah, it's a tough question, man. I mean, it wasn't the greatest look for Saurabh Tiwari, I have to say. And I feel bad for him because he's been a good cricketer. I mean, he was like, I know there were jokes all over Twitter. People were like, he used to look like MS Dhoni. Now he looks like Inzi Bhai and stuff. You're just like, okay. But he played a nice innings, 42. And I guess the point there is that there is place in cricket for people who don't look like they're athletes or personal trainers, right? And I mean, Saurabh played a fantastic innings for MI, and he was actually the first one to hit a six this IPL. So I think we should cut a little bit of slack. Lockdown's been hard on everyone, man. I mean, it's been hard on you, it's been hard on me, it's been hard on the players. They haven't played. It's their living. They don't know what's going to happen. Like, these guys are lucky they have an IPL contract, but maybe Saurabh doesn't have those facilities that someone like an MS Dhoni or a Virat Kohli or a Rohit Sharma does have, right? So I think we should cut the players a little bit of slack. And I mean, being match fit is different from being like physically fit, right? Like when Rohit came out to bat, dude, he looked like he was carrying on his form from the last World Cup. That first shot that he unleashed, you're just like, wow, this guy is not stopped batting. He's batting through the lockdown. So let's cut them a little bit of slack. They've got 2 months to sort themselves out, and I'm sure they'll be fine. So hopefully the chatter about all this stuff can end.
Yeah, I think well said. Okay, so the beauty of having a weekend match, basically, or a weekend with 2 matches, is we're going to spend the rest of this segment discussing both matches in great detail. By the time you hear from us next week, we have to cover 7 matches in one episode, which we'll get to the highlights and the exciting ones. But today, we're going to get into each of the matches. So for the first one, let's cover CSK versus Mumbai. Right. I decided to see if we could use that in between a segment to see if that sound works. So let us know if you like it or you hate it or that trumpet is too jarring.
No, so I know, and my wife Anisha has actually told me I never want to hear this trumpet ever again in my entire life.
I'm guessing she's not as diehard an IPL fan as us.
No, in fact, like I was playing the IPL anthem on repeat right before this thing started, the copied IPL anthem, Aayenge Hum Wapas. And yeah, and it has that sound at the end and she's just like, just stop playing anything, because the song, she likes the beat and all of that, but she can't bear the trumpet.
So you have to get to hitting pause right before the trumpet comes.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, first match, Rohit versus Dhoni. Thala comes back after 400 days, I think the math was, somebody was saying. So I'm not the only one who does math on days, by the way, DJ. You guys make fun of me.
1 year, 2 months and 9 days. I did the math.
There you go. See,
I tweeted it out, man.
Perfect. So very interesting to see. Chennai won the toss, decided to chase. Seems like the logical decision. Seems like probably the smart call early on in any tournament. And, let's talk quickly about selections, right? So a couple of surprises for me. In the Mumbai lineup, And by the way, if you haven't, you can go back and listen to our preview where we each name our playing 11 for each of the 8 franchises. None of us were right about either side, which, no surprise. But Saurabh Tiwari at 4 instead of Ishan Kishan. And then James Pattinson as one of the overseas slots coming in. I guess he batted at 8, but bowled a full quota of 4 overs. DJ, tell me about those. What was your reaction to those selections kind of before the match?
So with Tiwari, I think we'd all gone for Ishan Kishan, right, at number 4. Maybe they've seen something in the nets at the Mumbai Indian nets, because he looked like he was striking the ball pretty well. He got out to a blind of a catch by Faf. Whether it's Kishan or it's Tiwari, I think it's probably a toss-up, but they're both left-handers, both kind of big hitting guys. And so I think it's probably a toss-up, and this guy just edged Kishan in that front. Pattinson is an interesting pick, right? Because they obviously have Bolt, which is already an overseas left arm. Pattinson, I thought, was a very interesting pick. Who did we have in our preview teams instead of Pattinson?
I think I had Sherfane Rutherford, obviously, as the overseas spot. I think Mitchell McClenaghan, Chris Lynn could have opened at the top. So they have a few options instead of James Pattinson, but they went with the overseas bowling option.
Yeah. So interesting. He did pretty well, actually. He bowled the best of the lot. So, can't complain with that selection.
And then let's quickly talk about the CSK selection, right? So they went with, we all thought Watson, actually I don't think you guys did, but Watson, Faf and Vijay would be the top 3. They actually went with Watson and Vijay to open, Faf at 3, Rayudu 4, some changes in the order lower down. But Sam Curran and Lungi Ngidi were their 2 bowlers who they picked as the overseas slots. DJ, were you surprised by both those selections, or at least one of them?
Yeah, so we all talked about Tahir, right, and how he's in such good form during the CPL. And so for me, he would have walked into that 11 instead of Piyush Chawla, just because of the form he's in. He was the highest wicket taker last year, right? So instead of Ngidi, I would have played Tahir. So I was surprised by that, 100%. And the other one that we thought was Hazelwood, right, who would have played. He didn't play either. So interesting selections. But as you said, I think because we were surprised with those, maybe they saw some pace in the wicket. And that's why they went with Lungi as the... Ngidi as the overseas slot.
Yeah, and just speaking of pace in the wicket, Bravo was the other one we talked about, right? Who is shocking to see Bravo not get selected.
Well, he's injured, I think. That's why he didn't get in. So he's injured for another game, I think, for CSK.
So that'll be really interesting to see what CSK does with their combinations. But interesting start. I will say, I think we've all talked about the spin being important in the UAE, but that's been kind of as the tournament progresses. New pitches, unused for most of the season. It makes sense that teams are seeing kind of green tracks and getting some help for the seamers early on. So Mumbai came out to bat, decent start from the openers. Quinton de Kock, as he tends to, gets off to a pretty good start. Both openers perish fairly quickly. The kind of highlight would have been Saurabh Tiwari's knock, honestly, right? 42 of 31. He consolidated when he needed to. But honestly, just a little bit of a subpar innings, right? Despite the fact that they ended up at 162, they lost 9 wickets. Quinton de Kock and Tiwari, the only guys to have crossed 30 runs. So going into that dressing room, 162 for 9 in 20 overs, CSK would have been feeling pretty good. And then on the first over, Trent Bolt comes out, gets Shane Watson, 5 for 1. And exactly 6 deliveries later, James Pattinson comes in and gets Murali Vijay out. She probably should have been out 2 balls earlier, LBW, was not given, and then got out on the last ball of the over, which actually would have been missing, but he didn't review it. So, DJ, talk me through that, right? Chasing 163, you got 2 really experienced openers, and you're now sitting there at 6 for 2 in 2 overs.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, we talked about match fitness and cricketing fitness and physical fitness, right? Vijay looked physically fit, but he looked like he didn't quite get cricket anymore. Like he was misfielding when they were in the field. He missed a couple of balls. The first one looked really close, and I think that was umpire's call on hitting the stumps. And then he didn't review one which was missing the stump. So, he looked really out of sorts. And I say that as a guy who picked him in my fantasy team.
Interesting. You had Vijay?
Yeah, I picked Vijay because he was playing, right? Like he was 7.5.
That's a terrible pick on any. I'm just going to say that.
So I had him. Obviously, it didn't work well. But the other thing is Chennai has 4 openers, as we've talked about. Like Watto with his big front pad and its own postcode. That guy just... He wanted... You could see he wanted to review it, but he just didn't because I mean,
That
incredible.
would have been so entertaining for us.
Can you imagine? Like he takes the review and he's hitting middle stumper. Anyway,
Oh.
Watto gets out. They've got Watto, they've got Vijay, they have Ambati, and they've got Faf. All four of them have opened for Chennai in the past. So, I mean, whether it was 6 for 2, it may well have been 0 for 0, right? When Ambati and Faf got together.
Yeah, so 6 for 2. Faf walks in 1 down, Rayudu walks in 2 down. They'd end up building an outstanding partnership, 115 runs. And, Faf is playing the consolidation role, just taking singles, batting it slightly less than a run a ball, and then accelerates to about a run a ball. And Rayudu plays the innings of his life. Talk about physical fitness, talk about match fitness. An absolutely outstanding knock. Ends up at 71 of 48, and unfortunately perishes cotton ball to Cheher. And, ends up basically left his position his team in a match-winning position. But at number 5 walks out Ravindra Jadeja, makes 10 runs, gets out. Number 6 walks out Sam Curran. So MS Dhoni didn't walk out till number 7. DJ, walk me through that. What's the logic there? You got Faf on the other end. You've promoted Jadeja and then Sam Curran, who's in the team as a bowler, maybe stretching, you can call him a bowling all-rounder. What was Dhoni thinking?
So it's a function, I think, and Sam Curran mentioned this in his post-match interview, which Dhoni didn't even bother to come out for. He sent Sam Curran. He mentioned it saying it was left hand, right hand, and Krunal Pandya was spinning it into the left-hander, right? And I think Rahul Chahar is also a leg spinner. So it was a function of the left-hand, right-hand combination being maintained. And for Krunal Pandya, I mean, he really tore into Krunal Pandya, man, towards the end. So, the move did come off. And, Sam Curran himself said he was surprised. And, for all the Thala fans out there, we were all just sitting there going, please, can we just watch this guy come out and bat? It's been so long. But he just kept sending out Jadeja, who hit a huge 6 as well, and then got out. And then Sam Curran walked out, which was just like completely out of left field, right? But it's so classic Dhoni. He doesn't care about what the fans think. He doesn't care about what people think where he should be batting. He's just like, I want to win this game. And this is the matchup that I've come up with. There is a left-arm spinner bowling to a left-hand batsman. That is the best way of winning this game. And lo and behold, Dad's Army wins yet another game at the start of the tournament. I mean, again, man on man, Mumbai are a better side, genuinely. But who walks away with the game? CSK, man. And Dhoni didn't contribute with the bat. He made 0 of 2, but that gives him an infinity average this IPL.
All right. I'm not going to respond to that one just yet. So exactly as DJ said, Sam Curran took them over the line. DJ, I'll come to you when we talk about the second match to talk about Faf's innings, because a lot of people on social media at the time were saying, is this a match-losing knock? You got Rayudu batting great and you're just not accelerating. Faf ended up with a strike rate of 132. 58 of 44 balls, but was slow throughout. But hey, winning result, you'll take it. So CSK gets their first points on the board. Kedar Jadhav did not bowl, did not take a catch, did not come out to bat. So interesting to see what a guy who's number 6 on the batting lineup sheet, what role he has to play, and do they swap him out for somebody else in the future? So
saving him for 2027, keeping him match fit.
That's the goal, right?
Bench fit.
First match, and CSK's got their points on the board. Battle of the Titans, 7 wins, 7 trophies between them. And then we move to Delhi versus Punjab. Cumulatively, no trophies between them. Not dissimilar. Actually, hold on. I got to do this before we duck to a second match.
I think that one may be overkill.
Okay, we'll find out. We'll get some feedback from our listeners. So, second match, Delhi versus Punjab. Delhi loses the toss. Punjab wins the toss. KL Rahul coming out as skipper for the first time. Chooses to field, probably the right call as well. Again, interesting selections where Delhi picked Anrik Nortje as one of the overseas slots. And then Punjab had both Chris Jordan and Sheldon Cottrell as 2 of their overseas players. So again, both teams seeing pace in the wicket early on. And honestly, in both games, pace bowlers did pretty well. But DJ, I don't think you got a chance to watch this. Let me ask you, for Delhi fans, right? You got this great top order. Shaw, Dhawan, Iyer, Pant, Hetmeyer, Stoinis, your top 6. So excited. Videos from the nets, Rishabh Pant smashing the ball everywhere. Ricky Ponting saying, shot Rishabh and this and that. 6 for 1, right? Shikhar Dhawan hits a ball right behind him. Stupid calling. Prithvi Shaw and Dhawan were both ball watching. Gets run out. An over later, ball that, was a good ball by Shami. Great bowling by Shami. But Prithvi Shaw hits an absolutely outrageous shot. Just skies it in the air and gets caught. And then end of that same over, Shimron Hetmeyer does the same things, hits the ball in the air, gets caught. So now we're sitting there at 13 for 3, and Varun and I are just messaging each other saying, I cannot believe there's another year of this insert expletive here. What happened, man? How did Delhi end up at 13 for 3 again, and with Iyer and Pant at the crease to try to consolidate?
So thankfully at this stage, I was actually playing cricket today. So today was my last game of the season. So I'll be watching this disaster unfold every week going on. But it was, I watched the highlights, and Dhawan was just like, what went on? Because I think he gloved it, right? And so he was so excited not to be out, caught behind, that he just started running down the wicket blindly. And then Prithvi Shaw, not the greatest shot. And then Hetmeyer was a nothing shot as well. And if we're 13 for 3, I mean, with a team that we've backed to be a favourite for this tournament, you're just like, not again, please, don't let this happen again. But then Captain Iyer, man, what sixes he pulled out. Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Iyer and Pant consolidated pretty well. Pant obviously still looked really ugly. Unfortunately, I can't get over how he keeps falling over and doesn't look great, but I'll take a 31 from 29 and then Iyer 39 from 32. Both good knocks, but just probably should have stayed a little bit longer to see their team over the line. And what was looking like a 110, 120, maybe 125 total just got lit up. The stadium got lit up with Marcus Stoinis. So we've talked a lot about how Delhi's lacked a finisher, an Andre Russell type of figure. Marcus Stoinis walks in at 6 and hasn't had too much success at 6 before, but blistering 53 off 21 balls before getting run out on what turned out to be the penultimate ball of the innings. Absolutely outstanding knock. So gets Delhi to 157, at which point, momentum's with Delhi, confidence is with them, feeling really good. The Punjab openers come out. They start pretty well. Rahul and Mayank looking pretty solid. Rahul then perishes, gets bowled by Mohit. And then Ravi Ashwin walks in, first time in Delhi colours. And on his first ball, wearing a Delhi uniform, he dismisses, I think, it was Karun Nair. Absolutely brilliant. And then and Nair went for a silly shot, arguably skied it. And then 5 balls later, on the second last ball of his over, he gets Nicholas Pooran. All the hype in the world about Pooran for this year, gets him bowled with an absolutely beautiful drifting arm ball between bat and pad, hits the pad and goes on to hit the stumps. And then on the next ball, he dives to stop a ball that's going towards mid-off and injures, and we believe dislocates his shoulder. So, DJ, what happened here? Was Ashwin just overzealous and excited that he had gotten 2 wickets? He's 1 over 2 for 2, and then we see him walking off with his arm in a sling, unable to play for the rest of the match.
Yeah, and I had him as my fantasy vice captain as well, so that was pretty disastrous.
2 for 2 is pretty good for your points, I'm saying.
It was, but I mean, he had 3 overs left. Imagine how many more he would have taken at that rate.
I had him too, so I'm regretting that as well. But anyway, let's keep
going. But I mean, big blow, right? Like in the middle of a game to lose a player who's of that stature. I mean, Ashwin knows the Punjab team inside out, right? He was captain there last year. So you're just like, that one I think really hurt the Delhi Capitals. He was probably overzealous. He was pumped up, man. You could see he was up for the fight, right? Like he's taken 2 wickets, beautiful ball to Nicholas Pooran to get that wicket. And you could see he was definitely pumped up. The good news for Delhi Capitals fans, and hopefully some of you are listening to this podcast, is that Ashwin apparently will be back for the next game. That's what Shreyas Iyer has told people in his press conference. Of course, it's all subject to the physio clearing him and all of that, but thankfully it's not like a season-ending injury or like a injury that's going to keep him out for 4 weeks, which will affect the balance, but maybe it's maximum a couple of games that he'll miss. So super news for Delhi Capitals fans.
Couldn't agree more. Right. So then this is, we're running a little over time, but this is what I mentioned about the previous innings. Rahul out, Nair out, Pooran out, Maxwell out. Great bowling by Delhi, poor shot selection by the Punjab batsman. But the other opener, Mayank Agarwal, was just consolidating at the other end, picking up singles, batting at about a run a ball, a little slower. And when they needed 42 of 18 balls, it looked like Delhi should have sealed the game. Mayank comes out and has an absolute blinder. And basically, long story short, Mayank ends on 89. He's on 89 of 58. There are 3 balls remaining in the last over. Scores are tied. Marcus Stoinis bowling, because Ashwin wasn't able to complete his spell, so Stoinis had to step in and bowl. The guy who sizzled with the bat is now bowling the 20th over. 1 run of 3 needed. Scores are tied. Mayank goes for glory, tries to hit it over the boundary ropes, gets caught on I think it was the deep backward point boundary. Oh, I'm sorry. He missed the first ball. Then he gets caught on the deep backward point boundary. And on the last ball of the innings with 1 to go, Chris Jordan flicks it to kind of a forward square leg kind of position, and Rabada takes an absolute brilliant catch. So now Punjab has ended at 157 for 8 against all odds after a blistering knock from Mayank. Delhi has tied up the match. DJ, were you able to catch this point at all? I was in shock. Varun at 1:30 in the morning, his time, calls me and we're like yelling at each other on the phone. It's like, how did Delhi manage to do this? We should have won. Then we got into a point where we should have 100% lost, and we managed to draw it.
Yeah, so I was in the car back by this time, right? I was watching on my phone, which is why I couldn't be on Discord or like WhatsApping you guys, because I was glued to the match. Because as you say, the match has just been swinging one way or another. We looked like we were going to lose when we started batting, then we recovered decently, Then we took those early wickets, so it looked great. Then Ashwin goes out. It's just like a pendulum swinging from one side to the other. It was insane. And then at one stage, like Mayank just unleashed and he started hitting these 6s and 4s. And then Shreyas Iyer, one of the safest fielders we have, right? Even in the Indian team, lets one go through his hands of Rabada. And remember, in the 19th over, Mayank Agarwal pushes one from Rabada. They run 2. Chris Jordan, his partner, is running to the danger end, and he looked like he'd completed the second run, but Nitin Menon, the square leg umpire, declared a short run, saying that Jordan did not tap his bat past the crease. Now, subsequently, with replays and stuff, it was shown that this was actually not a short run, right? So, I mean, you had like Virender Sehwag tweeting and kind of ridiculing the umpire and stuff. I mean, if you need 1 of 3 balls and you've lost, and then you're blaming a short run that was done in the previous over, I mean, I think that's stretching it a little bit. Obviously, Twitter's already blowing up about it. Kings 11 Punjab fans are not happy about it. They wanted the TV umpire to be brought in and overrule this, but obviously the rules as written don't allow that. We also had last year the no ball, right? MI versus RCB, and Kohli was unhappy about the last ball, which was a no ball, which kind of cost him a game. So, yeah. And then this guy, Marcus Stoinis, who everyone has been like, he must bat at the top of the order, and okay, he's fine with the ball. The smashes 52 of 20 balls while finishing the innings, and then comes into the last innings and like cleans up the last one, frankly, was a rubbish ball. It was like a full toss on leg stump. And the one before that was a full toss on off stump. So I think there's a little bit of luck there. So hopefully Delhi has not used up all its luck in the first game. But I mean, for that super over to come from nowhere, because the first ball of that over had gone for 6, right? It was like 13 of 6, it was gone for 6. And at that stage, you're like 7 of 5, and that's nothing for these guys. It reminded me a little bit of that India-Bangladesh game where Mushfiqur prematurely celebrated. So at least there was no premature celebration from the Punjab guys, but wow. Not expecting that one to go to a super over. So at that point, didn't want to jinx it, but I couldn't stop myself. I literally texted you guys saying it's a champagne. So.
Yeah, I mean, outstanding. Not a lot to say about the super over. So Punjab had to come out first to bat. Interestingly, they didn't send out Mayank, who had made 89 outstanding runs. You feel for the guy, but I think it was probably some combination of exhaustion, maybe a light injury. Kagiso Rabada, who's done it in a super over for Delhi before, walks into bowl. They get 2 runs off the first ball and then back-to-back wickets. You're only allowed two wickets to fall in a super over. So Punjab finishes their super over at 2 for 2, the lowest ever by any team in a super over. And Delhi sends out Pant and Iyer to bat. A lot of discussion about whether Pant was the right guy. Shami bowls a wide, 2 runs, easy enough, 3 for 0 in 2 balls. Delhi takes it home. So a match that arguably Delhi should have won for most of it. Punjab should have won for much of it as well. Delhi Capitals register their win. They're on the board. Whether it takes a super over or not, points are points. Delhi will take it. So at the end of the first weekend, CSK and Delhi are sitting up there with wins. Punjab and Mumbai have losses. A long, long tournament to go. DJ, by the time this releases, Hyderabad, Bangalore is going to be done as well. And, lots more exciting games to come in the future. Let me quickly ask you as we wrap up, prediction for the Sunrisers Hyderabad versus Royal Challengers Bangalore?
I'm going for the RCB, man. I want to see Virat win some games. We want a new champion this year, man. You said it. We want a new champion this year. We're sick of seeing MI and CSK win. Fine, they can qualify for the playoffs. I don't care. But it should be either DC or RCB this year, genuinely.
And Punjab has never won before, so they could be the third one.
Yeah, cool. Okay. I mean, we're speaking to the Punjab guys at the back end of the show, right? But you know what, Ashwin? You know what I say? I'm just so excited to have live sport on after 100
There
days.
you
That's all I care about.
Love it. So that brings us to the end of this segment. Again, as a reminder, our second half has 3 awesome Kings 11 Punjab fans join us. We love talking to fans, engaging. We're having so much fun with this. Just remember that when we recorded, they hadn't seen the result of the Delhi versus Punjab game. So they're probably a little bit more energetic and optimistic about their team than they would have been had we recorded after. But that's the way it goes. Thank you for joining us. And we'll take a quick break and see you on the other half of this podcast.
But now you have to play the sound before we go on the break.
There it is.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to an amazing, awesome, excellent, extraordinary week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Intel, for supporting us. Great week on the network. If you haven't been listening, why haven't you been listening? You should be listening. There was a really interesting episode on all things policy, episode 413. Do check this out. Title of the episode was How Do We Vaccinate India? And I think that's a really important question in today's time. So definitely do give that a listen. I think you'll enjoy that conversation. Or maybe not enjoy, but at least you'll learn something from it. States of Anarchy, Hamsini Hariharan's show. She has put together an episode called Why We Protest. Very compelling. Do give it a listen. And finally, I want to just remind you all that, it's a dark time, but if you need a smile, go check out the Smile India podcast by Shifa Mehtra. It's in both English and Hindi, and I think that you will really, really enjoy the kinds of things that she's talking about there. And with that, let's get you back to your show.
All right, we are very excited to kick off the first episode of our IPL listener edition. So for those of you who are newer to the show, if you haven't done this before, last year we had, a variety of different guests on. For the duration of the IPL, we have one guest or more from each team joining us. So this week's episode will cover one team, and for each of the next 8 weeks, we're going to dive a little bit into each of the 8 IPL teams. Hopefully Varun can remember all 8 team names by the time the IPL goes a little bit more into detail. But anyway, so for the first one, we're excited to kick off with the Kings 11 Punjab. We have 3 awesome fans who wrote into us, sent in voice clips. Guys, we're super excited to have you. We'll go one by one. But so this week we're going to dive into the Kings 11 Punjab. Next week onwards, we'll go into a separate team. So I'm going to start with asking each of you guys a little bit about 2 things. 1, how did you start listening to Edges and Sledges, and what's your journey with our podcast? And then 2, what's the background on your story as a Punjab fan? So Bharath, let me start with you. If you don't mind jumping in, how did you find our podcast? How did you get in? And what's your journey as the Kings 11 Punjab fan?
Hi Ash. Nice to be on the show. First and foremost, I don't remember properly actually when I started listening to this podcast. Probably from a year ago, I guess. I can't remember how I found this podcast, but it sounded interesting. Something out of the box. Usually you listen to a lot of commentary from the regular cricketers or experts. It was something different. From a fan's perspective, you could relate to him. You could probably, it sounded like you're talking to a friend. A friend is talking to you. Your experience, your opinions might be different. Sometimes it will be same. Yeah, it kind of gave me a good experience. And then when did I become a Kings 11's fan was probably from 3 years before, from 2017, from when Ashwin started captaining the Kings 11. When IPL initially started, since I'm from Bangalore, I was an RCB fan. And then slowly the structure of the IPL became different. Players from all other teams came. We could not relate to RCB anymore. We had hundreds of other reasons for that. But now, since Kings 11 Punjab has now officially or unofficially become Kings 11 Karnataka, it has given us more reasons to root for the team. One more thing is when the IPL was held in UAE last time, that's in 2014, Kings 11 had a tremendous run. George Bailey's team, they won 5 on 5, and then they even went on to the final. Unfortunately, one bad day, and our own Manish Pandey spoiled it for them. And now I'm hoping that Kings 11 probably can do better again. And even today's match, they're doing well. When I saw, they had picked 3 wickets already. So hopefully this year will be theirs.
Yeah, thanks, Bharath. Really good intro. And just for our listeners, at the time of recording this, we're actually about halfway through the first innings of the Delhi-Punjab match. So by the time you hear this, you know what will happen. I'm hopeful it's a Delhi win, but we'll see how that goes. So it's a little bit awkward with recording timings. But Bharath, thanks for sharing that. Of course, Ashwin now is part of the Delhi Capital. So we're excited to have him, and so hope he does some big things for us this season.
I want Ashwin to do well, but I want Kings 11 to win the match.
Okay, we'll see how that one goes. So thanks. That's Bharath, who's our first Kings 11 Punjab fan who's joining us. Our second fan who's with us today is Inderveer Singh. Inderveer, thanks for being on Edges and Sledges. Tell us a little about how you found the podcast and how you became a Kings 11 Punjab fan.
Thank you so much for having me here. And I saw your Edge and Sledges cricket podcast during the month of I guess in February, March. I saw your this fan reviews and stuff. I saw that you were inviting fans. And I was pretty excited because this is my first time with your Edge and Sledge cricket podcast. So I was, pretty excited to join you people for this Kings 11 fan interview. And my association with Kings 11 Punjab as a fan, it goes back to 2008. Coming from a Punjabi household, it is obvious for me to support Kings 11 Punjab. And the another reason was that I live in Kolkata. I'm from Kolkata, and there was this connect with Punjab. Though I was away from Punjab, I was not living in Punjab, I was away from Punjab. So I used to miss everything about Punjab. And the third reason why I was supporting Kings 11 Punjab from the beginning was the Yuvraj Singh. We had Yuvraj Singh as the inaugural captain for our team. So what else do you need? A lush green Mohali outfield, a captain like Yuvraj Singh, and the energetic Mohali crowd. So there was no brainer for me to support any other team. It was Kings 11 Punjab all the way.
Awesome. And the reason Varun here, great to hear that. And I just wanted to ask, are a lot of your friends and people you watch the game with, did they also follow because of somebody like a Yuvraj? Because I remember that iconic season in 2008 where every team had, like a Delhi had a Sehwag, Punjab had a Yuvraj Singh. Do a lot of your friends also follow for that reason?
Regarding Kings 11 Punjab or regarding all the other teams?
Just generally, just out of curiosity, because it's interesting. IPL, you switch teams, right? And it's great to hear. Yeah. Bharath started because of Ashwin. You started because of Yuvraj. Both of them are not in the Kings 11, but the loyalty to the team continues.
That loyalty will always continue to be there. It will still be there. And I will take it to the last. There's no changing. It was Kings 11 Punjab. It is Kings 11 Punjab, and it will be Kings 11 Punjab.
Proud of you, man. That's the way it should be.
We have been through worst. 2010 was worst for us. 2015 also we had an amazing tournament in 2014. But irrespective of the result, my loyalty won't change towards my team. It will be there.
I love that. Absolutely. Really well said. And Varun, you kind of touched upon this idea, but if you think about sports leagues that have been around much longer, right? Like in England, in the North America, in the US, etc. After a point, it just becomes who you support for your whole life, your generation. So many of us started watching IPL in 2008 when it's new. But think about 20, 30, 40 years from now being a lifelong fan of a franchise. Gotta admire their loyalty. Nicely done. So our third Kings 11 Punjab fan joining us today is Rahul. Rahul, welcome to Edges and Sledges. Same questions. Tell us a little about how you found the show and your journey as a Punjab fan.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ash and Varun bhai, for inviting me. And I probably found you guys in April during the lockdown. I was on Twitter I'm on Twitter since 2012, but wasn't that active. I've been following few podcast channels, and then I found you guys in April, and I was, I listened to a couple of your episodes and was stunned. So when I found that you were keen on having fans from different teams, so I just sent my clip, and seeing that mail, I was excited to be on the best podcast here on Twitter. So my story is similar to Bharath. I too was a RCB fan in 2008, as I have said before. It was because in 2010 when he moved to Rajasthan, I was still supported because that loyalty gets attached to a team now, so you cannot easily unfollow or follow another franchisee. But 2014, 2015, I somehow just got detached with that side because of various reasons. So, and then I always had Kings 11 Punjab as my second favorite side. So I've beat that Punjabi flavor and Preeti Zinta, and I love their song, everything. So Kings 11 was my second favorite forever. So I started supporting them from 2014, obviously, when that breakthrough season for us happened. And it's been Kings 11 so far.
Awesome. Really well said. So we actually got lots of great listener questions. I want to kind of go around one by one to you. But Varun, let me ask you first. Both these guys mentioned both Bharath and Rahul mentioned kind of the players and following the players, right? As a Delhi fan, we've seen lots of players move around. But there's a lot of conversation about Punjab and specifically the Kannada contingent, right? And as I said, we're recording this while Delhi's playing Punjab. Rahul, who's the captain and keeper, is giving instructions to Gotham in Kannada, right? How do we internalize this? How do you think about the fact that one team has so many players from just a different state or different city?
I mean, you have to believe it's just a coincidence, right? You're picking players based on their merit. You're picking players based on how they fit into that particular squad. So
with Kumble, do you really think it's coincidence? Let me just probe you there.
I mean, look, I think maybe you know these guys better, right? So that's what happens in IPL and with coaches. Anyone you spend more time with, you have a certain bias towards them. So I think it may be because of that. But yeah, it's very interesting that everyone's calling it the Kings 11 Kannada. Like, it's a very funny thing.
So, Bharath, let me ask you then, I mean, without bias, given that you're from Bangalore, who are the kind of 2020 IPL season? Punjab is one of the only 3 teams that has never won an IPL, right? Unfortunately, only 3 teams currently playing that has never won an IPL. Delhi's one of the other 2, so we feel this very personally. But Bharath, tell me, who are the players to watch out for this season, right? Ashwin left, new captain, a couple of new overseas guys coming in, Sheldon Cottrell, etc. Who are your players? Give me your top 2 or 3 players to watch out for this season.
Well, I think the top 2 or 3 players for me in this season will be Ravi Bishnoi, the young leg spinner. I mean, he was exceptional in the Under-19 World Cup. And Punjab was quite dependent on Mujibur Rahman in last 2 seasons. He was good, but not so exceptional so that he can win the match alone. So Ravi Bishnoi is someone who I'll be looking at. And then Krishnappa Gautam. I think the Kings 11 think tank thought probably since they're letting go Ashwin, they bought Gautam as a replacement for him, like-to-like replacement. And then the third guy whom I'm looking at is Nicholas Pooran. I mean, he is a fabulous guy. I mean, I saw one innings in the CPL which he played. I mean, he literally, attacked the opposition. And then, so last year he did not get a lot of chances. So this time I'm hoping that he'll get a long run and he'll be able to fulfill his potential. And then apart from these 3 guys, probably I'm looking at Rahul's captaincy as well. He hasn't captained any team. I mean, probably he might have captained Under-19 or Under-23 Karnataka, but his captaincy will be under scanner this time.
Yeah, very interesting. So, Inderveer, let me ask you then, because Bharath picked 3 spinner. He mentioned Mujib, he mentioned Gautam. He's talking about, and Bishnoi, he's talking about the spin contingent. You could look at the Punjab side and say, well, Shami, Jordan, Cottrell. So, how do you feel about the rest of the bowling or the pace attack this time for the Punjab team?
Look, if you compare Kings 11 team to the last year, I'll say that the fast bowling department is much more better than 2018 and 2019. The only issue we always have is death bowling. Fine. So I personally feel that our pace bowling unit it's decent. I won't say that it's best. It's best compared to all the 8 teams, but it's decent. And coming to the death bowling issue, we have Chris Jordan for that. We got Jordan in the auctions just to address that issue. And I hope that, he'll do a pretty good job for us, pretty decent job for us. Even Shami has improved a lot. He's improved by leaps and bounds. I hope that his death bowling skills, the way he bowls in the international matches for India, I hope he'll repeat the same coming into the Kings 11 setup.
Yeah, very interesting. So I would agree with you, actually. I think Punjab's bowling looks pretty solid on paper. It's going to be interesting to see as the UAE pitches go from, grassy and seaming into spin. Do they start to change selection, bring Mujib, have Bishnoi play a bigger role, etc. Rahul, let me ask you a little bit about the batting then, right? Nicholas Pooran, Glenn Maxwell had a really good last few matches against England in England. Talk to me about Chris Gale. We got a question in on Twitter from Gautam Gupta. Was Chris Gale just kind of a punt? Is he in the team kind of as a maverick celebrity figure, etc., or do you think he's going to get a lot of game time?
Well, I'll start from the 2018 season. When they got him there, Virendra Sehwag said that Chris Gale will do good if he even wins us a couple of games. So I don't think they picked him for 14 games straight away in 2018, and that's going to be same this year too. The team management issued a statement that he'll play that mentor role as well. So that indicates what role he's going to serve here. Also, the point that they have to get their bowling right, because this team goes off in the second half of the season, and that's mainly through their bowling. The death bowling was an issue, so they have to get 2 overseas bowlers there. So that means they can only go with 2 overseas batters. So Maxwell is a sure shot selection, and between Nicholas Pooran and Chris Gayle, I think Pooran would be a good choice here. So Chris Gayle, it's harsh on him, but yeah, I don't see him getting many games this time. So yeah, that's it.
Very interesting. And then, Varun, let me ask you just to round out about the batting, right? You look at Gale, Maxwell, these guys. Rahul, undoubtedly, he's proved his mettle, outstanding T20 cricketer. But Mandeep, Karun, Sarfraz, Mayank, these are all younger Indian guys who've done well, but not consistently enough. I'm a big fan of Mayank, but I don't think he's done it consistently enough at T20. So who do you think needs to really step up to ensure Punjab has a breakthrough season?
Yeah, all young guys, all hungry, all looking for a place to get into India's T20 squad. So interesting opportunity. I think KL Rahul is going to promote younger Indian talent. So Mayank, of course, we know is his friend. He's probably going to open with him. This is a great chance like Sarfraz to finally come good. We know he's been in that zone of always having potential, but never having really come good enough for us to stand up and say, let's look at this kid more seriously. So I think people like Sarfraz, Mayank, all will stand up, and I think people like Kumble and Rahul will give them all the support.
Rahul, anything to add?
Yeah, just wanted to add that the good thing that Kings 11 have, that among the Indian batsmen, the Indian young batsmen, all of them are very good players of spin. So that will be very handy anyway. So be it KL Rahul, Mayank Agarwal, Karun Nair for that matter, and also Sarfraz Khan. So Sarfraz Khan is very street smart cricketer. He's very cheeky in his approach. So they've got a good batting unit, which can be very crucial in the latter half of the game against the spinners.
Yeah, I think really good point. That's very insightful. As the pitches start to spin more, having an India-heavy top order that can bat against spin is going to be really, really helpful. Let me ask you guys, I'll ask you all this question. I'll go in order. So Bharath, coming to you first, right? Brad Hogg has pretty publicly said he thinks Punjab will finish 8th. He's going to finish last. No chance of making it this year. Do you think he's right? Like, really, if you can take aside the fan in you, do you think Punjab is going to make it in the top 4 this year? And if so, where do you think they'll finish? Bharath?
Well, first and foremost, Brad Hogg, he's a good cricketer. I'm not sure why he told that. And one more thing which I would like to add is, Kumble is there, and why we see more Karnataka contingent is there because, not just because they're from Karnataka and Kumble is the coach. If you see the domestic cricket in India from the last 2 years, Karnataka have been champions in the Vijay Hazare and Syed Mustaq Ali, the 50 over and 2020 cricket. So, there is talent there. Unfortunately, no other team is looking at. So, one of the guys from our state is picking the players. Well, I'm not sure that what position they'll be finishing. Since I'm a fan, I'll not be telling that they'll be finishing in top 2. But I'm definitely hoping them to finish in top 4, 3 or 4. I'll not be extremely surprised if they finish at 5 or 6. Definitely they'll not get the wooden spoon. That's for sure.
Love it. A declaration by Bharath on the Edges and Sledges podcast. Not going to be bottom 2. Inderveer, how about you? I think interesting to see Bharath being pragmatic. He's saying, I don't think top 2, but maybe 3rd or 4th. What about you? Are you a little more optimistic this year?
I'll be answering to that Brad Hodge question that, look, I personally feel, not taking anything away, he's a great mind. He has been a great player, great T20 guy, but cricket is played on the field. I say this every time. It is played on field. I may predict about a team, about a particular team that, okay, they might, they may finish 7th or finish 8th or they may get a wooden spoon. But the reality is it is played on the field. As much as you speak, as much as you predict, nothing's going to work, right? And secondly, moreover, what I personally feel is that there have been instances in the past as well where people have usually predicted a lot, rated a lot, and things have gone haywire for them. Their predictions have gone wrong. They've had to mince their words, right? This has happened in a lot of cases. So, and talking about the Kings 11 Karnataka and stuff, Karnataka is one of the best, strongest domestic sides in India. Fine. Now, having few players from Karnataka, strongest setup in India, any team would love to have them, right? Any team would love to have players who are performing, a team who is performing, who is winning titles and championships for fun, right? And moreover, having someone like Kumble or having someone like KL Rahul it is only going to benefit the team. So I don't see anything wrong in picking guys from a champion team, from a domestic champion team.
Well said. I think couldn't agree more. Rahul, let's wrap with you. Chances for Punjab this season, are they going to end up with the wooden spoon?
Chances. Sorry, I missed that question. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Chances. Look, I won't be I won't say that they are going to win the championship, win the trophy. I hope they do, but I'm pretty confident that they'll finish in top 4.
Got it. Top 2 for Bharath, third and fourth for Bharath, top 4 for Inderveer. Rahul, how are you feeling? Are you going to be optimistic and say they'll take home the trophy?
Yeah, sure. Why not? They've got a decent squad this time, and the bowling is very good. The bowling is very decent. So that's why I'm hoping that since they've addressed that bowling concern very well, so the batting is not going to be that at all that a problem. So and also just coming to that question about picking up Karnataka guys, since the think tank is from Karnataka, I'm talking about Anil Kumble. So you tend to know the players from your state inside out. So for instance, Rahul Dravid in 2012 and 2013 picked guys from Karnataka too. So and Kerala, Sanju Samson, he had Srishant, he had Stuart Binney and Karun Nair. So I don't see any problem in that. And so that's how things go. You try to put the best team on the sheet, and that's what the option is for there. So it doesn't matter whom you pick, and they've got a very balanced side, I guess, and top 2 at least.
Love it. We had top 2, top 4, lots of excitement from the Punjab fans. That brings us to the end of this segment. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Rahul, Bharath, Inderveer, we'll tweet this episode out when it comes. We'll tag you guys in it. Join us on our Discord server. Hopefully, all 3 of you are playing fantasy cricket. If you're not yet, you can join. It's not too late, and compete in the Edges and Sledges Listener League. So much fun. Varun, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Great to chat with 3 fans of the game. Like I said, every week we will have a different episode. So this was our Kings 11 Punjab deep dive. Love to engage you guys. Hopefully we'll have you on the show again in the future, but all the best for the tournament. I hope Punjab ends second behind a Delhi Capital side that wins, but we'll see how the tournament goes as it progresses. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashwin. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ash and Varun. Yeah, it was wonderful coming here. Thanks a lot. Thanks,
guys.
Awesome. Great to have you guys. That brings us to an end of this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. If you didn't capture it from our voices, we are so excited that the IPL is back. We hope you are too. Join our fantasy league if you haven't already. You can check our Twitter page, twitter.com/onetiponehand or @onetiponehand to get the details of our private fantasy league. It's only been 2 games, but we have nearly 100, I think it is, players it's 96 teams in our fantasy league. So join it if you haven't already. At the top with 924 points at the end of day 2 is a team named Jay Pathan, Jay Ali Baba. These team names are going to be really difficult. In second place is Ricky 69 VW. Third place is King BHA Amigos. So lots of great teams. I will say that among the 3 hosts, I am currently in the lead.
Yeah, you're doing pretty well. You're doing
DJ,
pretty
I
well.
scroll all the way down. Hold on. Where are you? You're down in 36. So I see you in there. And then Varun's down in 50. So a pretty good weekend for me. Among the 3 of us, I'm in the lead, but I'm still in 10th among the listeners. It's a long series. Let's keep this energy going. We've also started a Discord channel, which is just outstanding. I mean, lots of great fans. Thank you all for tuning in. Great chat. So much fun during the game. So if you want to have some back and forth banter during the game, check out the Edges and Sledges Discord channel. You can also get details of that in the show notes right here or on our Twitter page. And we'll be back next week with fans from another team to do another deep dive. By then, 9 IPL games will be over, and we'll start to see how the points table is shaping up. Thank you very much.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं. नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल.
Presenting Football Shortball, a show about 3 friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes 3, maybe even 5. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my 2 sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthik Iyer.
Sidekick? You mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter, so whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो दिस इज ऑन ले लिया तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumors, top controversies, fantasy football picks, and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Should Ball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.